Today, I'm going to be providing you guys with 5 of the updated MP5 setups that you should be using in both multiplayer and in Warzone. This video is going to be a little different than my previous top 5 MP5 setups. I'm going to be showing you a website that you could use as a tool to look at each individual attachment and how it affects the overall performance of the gun. By the way, my G Fuel code Turbo is now 30% off of your purchase. It's only until July 31st. It's normally 10% off, but right now it's 30%. Check the link down below in the description. Use my code Turbo at checkout and get you some G Fuel. And another thing, the merch is back up. I've been getting a lot of DMs asking me, yo, what happened to the link? I want to buy more. And people who just didn't have the chance to buy the merch when I had that limited drop. So I decided, you know what, let's just put the store back up again so that it gives you guys an opportunity to go get some merch and support Turbo Nation. So that link will be down below in the description. So kicking things off, we're going to go over the multiplayer class setups first. So as you can see here, I have 3 multiplayer MP5 class setups. And I just want to clarify that these class setups are going to be as optimized as possible. There's going to be little differences between each setup, but each setup is going to be different in their own unique way. All right, so for my first class setup for the MP5, we're going to be running with the monolithic integral suppressor. I've always said this before. This is the attachment that you always want to run on the MP5, no matter what kind of build that you're trying to go for. This one gives you sound suppression and bullet velocity. Now, the key thing about this attachment is that it actually adds the most range that you could possibly get on the MP5 versus the monolithic suppressor. All right, so for the next attachment, we're using the FTAC collapsible stock. So I need to clarify that yes, during the last update, they did nerf the no stock attachment, and the FTAC collapsible is one of those attachments that does fall under that category. And yes, the recoil is a lot worse, but it's manageable. It's not that hard to control the collapsible stock. And plus, you're supposed to be using the MP5 from about a certain range, and the range that I do recommend using it is up to about 30 meters at the most. The closer you are, the bigger your target is going to be, which is going to result in more accurate shots. So do not be afraid to use the collapsible stock. All right, so for the next attachment, this is optional, but I personally want to go with sleight of hand. Now, the reason why is because it just takes forever to reload the weapon. Simple as that. Now, if you don't want to use sleight of hand and you want to add a lot more aim down sight speed, you could replace sleight of hand with simple grip tape. This is going to be more for people who want to maximize the overall aggressiveness of the MP5. So for the ammunition, we're going to be running with 45 round magazines. Now, the other thing is that it uses 9mm rounds. So with that said, you can actually maximize the amount of ammo that you carry on your MP5 if you run a secondary that runs the same amount of ammo. All right, so for the underbarrel, we're using Merc foregrip. Now, the reason why is because obviously that recoil control is going to mitigate those negatives that are seen on the collapsible stock. Also, that hipfire accuracy is nice for close quarter engagements if you don't want to aim down sights. Now, one small pro that is not stated in this description about the Merc foregrip is that it adds more movement speed, and that's something that I'm going to show you later on in the website. All right, so for the secondary, we're running with the M19. Now, the reason why I chose the M19 for this specific class setup is because you're able to hold 32 round mags. So we're using 32 round mags. Perk is going to be fully loaded. This is what's going to allow you to hold the maximum amount of ammo as possible on your MP5. All right, so for a second option for multiplayer, it's going to be basically the same exact attachments, except for the ammunition is going to be the 10mm auto 30 round magazine. So this is one of the attachments that was nerfed in the last update. The damage range decrease is not that bad. It's only by a couple feet, and you're not really going to notice that anyway, because like I said, you do want to use this up close and personal. And we are also going to be comparing and contrasting the different ranges and time to kills for all of the class setups that I'm going to go over later on in the video. This attachment is going to give you the best time to kill out of all the MP5 class setups that I'm about to show you. However, it does have its caveats. It only has 30 rounds in each magazine, so you have to keep that in mind. And it's all about how you use the weapon and maximize it to its potential, and you got to recognize its weaknesses as well, and you have to adjust your playstyle accordingly. And on this specific class setup, I do recommend you use sleight of hand because you only have 30 rounds to work with. You're going to find yourself reloading pretty often, and if you're going to play aggressive, you're going to want to have to reload your weapon as often as possible. So that's why putting on sleight of hand is going to be very useful. So one other caveat about this class setup is that you can't use another secondary so that you can maximize the amount of ammo you have on your primary, which is the MP5 with those 10mm rounds. So that's the unfortunate part about this. You know, you're going to be running out of ammo pretty quickly. So the secondary really doesn't matter. I'm just running with a Renetti. With this one, you do want to use something like a munitions box so that you can reload your ammo throughout the match as needed. All right, so for the third class setup, this is my no recoil MP5 setup. So this this is more for those players who are more casual, new to the game, and don't really have that confidence to control that recoil. So I'm going to throw up a screenshot really quick, and I'm going to show you guys the first two MP5 recoil patterns versus the last recoil pattern, which is going to be the no recoil. And as you can see, it does give you the easiest recoil to control on this class setup. So for the barrel, of course, we're running with the monolithic integral suppressor, same thing. Now for the stock, this is going to be different. We're going to be using the Forge Tac Ultralight. So on the pros, it says it increases your aim walking movement speed. Basically what this is that when you're coming off of a sprint and you pull your gun up to aim down sights, that's what aim down sight walking speed is. You know, and the good thing about this is that it doesn't really have any major cons to it that would turn me off from using this attachment. So for the rear grip, we're going to be using stippled grip tape. Now the reason why I'm using this is so that we can have more aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. Remember, we're not using the no stock on this exact class setup, so we're going to go ahead and maximize the potential of this weapon as far as aim down sight speed goes, since we don't have the collapsible stock. By using the stippled grip tape, it's going to give us aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed as well. All right, so for the ammunition, we're going to be running with 45 round mags. Again, we're going to use a secondary such as the M19 so that we can maximize the amount of ammo that we have. All right, so for the underbarrel, we're using the Merc foregrip once again. And again, my secondary is M19, so we can maximize the ammo capacity of our MP5 thanks to the 32 round mags and the perk fully loaded. All right, so let's go over my Warzone setups really quickly here. So one thing that I want to outline about my Warzone setups is that I only use SMGs as a secondary. So that means I'm using Overkill in my first loadout. So this is the Bruin MK9. This is what I'm currently using right now, but it doesn't matter. You can use this setup if you want to. Now, the important thing about this setup is that you want to use the MP5 only in close quarter combat situations. And also when you're trying to get from point A to point B in Warzone, you'll just move a lot faster, obviously, because you're using an SMG. For the barrel, I'm using the monolithic integral suppressor. For the laser, this one's optional. You don't have to use the laser if you're not comfortable with hip firing, but when you use this attachment, that hip fire spread and that sprint to fire accuracy is super handy when you're clearing out buildings. You don't even have to aim down sights. You can take down opponents in buildings really quickly just by hip firing your opponents. All right, so for the stock, we're going to be using the FTAC collapsible stock. Now for the ammunition, this is going to be optional. It just really depends on the person. It really depends if you care about having as much ammo as possible or you want the fastest time to kill possible. Because some people, they're not accurate, so they got to go with the 45 round mags, and other people choose the 30 round mags because they want that faster time to kill and they're a lot more accurate with their shots. And keep in mind, the time to kill between these two at the same ranges, they're very similar. If anything, the 10mm kills faster just slightly. All right, so for the underbarrel, we're going to be running with that Merc foregrip. So for the perks, it's going to be EOD, Overkill, and Amped. When you get your second loadout, you want to have the same exact loadout, except for perk number 2, it's going to be Ghost, so that you can switch out your secondary on your second loadout back for your MP5, and now you also have your Bruin MK9 with the Ghost perk. So for lethal, it's going to be C4, tactical is going to be heartbeat sensor. All right, so pretty much this second option for Warzone is almost the same as my first Warzone loadout. The only thing that's going to be different is the ammunition. So on this one, we're going to be running 10mm auto 30 round magazine. Now, I'm only going to use this if I feel like I want to move a lot faster in game, because obviously with the 45 round mags, your movement speed is going to be hindered quite a bit. So if you're more comfortable with accuracy, I do recommend you use the 30 round mags. And at the same time, this does give you faster movement speed, because with 45 round mags, obviously you're going to move a little bit slower. Now, one thing that's optional on this one is you don't need to use the 5mW laser. You can take this off and put on the perk sleight of hand instead, because we are using 30 round mags only, and in Warzone you do need a certain amount of shots to down your opponents because they are wearing plates in Warzone. So you definitely do want to have sleight of hand to be able to take on that enemy's teammates. So now that you've seen all of my top 5 MP5 setups, let's switch over to the website and let me show you exactly why this website is useful. So now that we've got a bit of a sense of exactly what we're going to be using on our MP5s, you know, no matter which route you choose, let's go ahead and explore this website. So the website is going to be truegamedata.com. Shout out to the maker of this website. He does a lot of hard work for us here in the Call of Duty community. So the least we can do is show some love back. You know, I'll leave all his links in the description down below. I've already gone ahead and plugged in all the data for all the class setups. So as you can see right here, we have the MP5 number 1, number 2 with the 10mm, MP5 number 3. This is going to be the no recoil one, by the way. Number 4 is going to be Warzone loadout number 1. Number 5 is going to be Warzone loadout number 2. So let's just take a quick comparison of the summary data here. And we're going to go row by row here. And we're just going to take a look and compare and contrast which ones are actually better than the other and what's better suited for you. So for my MP5 number 1 setup, we have the monolithic integral suppressor. And I did tell you guys that this gives you the most amount of damage range possible. So if you take a look at the monolithic suppressor, as you can see right here, it adds 10% to your range. Also a 17 millisecond negative to your aim down sight speed and a 15% bullet velocity. Now, if you go back to the monolithic integral suppressor, 18% range increase, 21 millisecond aim down sight speed negative, and 25% increase in your bullet velocity. So obviously, if you want to maximize your damage range, you definitely want to go with the monolithic integral suppressor. So as you can see here, all across the board, no matter what setup you're going to go with, it's the best range that you could possibly get with the MP5. And we'll also take a look at the damage ranges as well, which is also really nice about this website. As you can see here, it shows the drop-offs for the damage ranges as well as the time to kill. So taking a look at the aim down sight speeds here, the 10mm auto 30 round magazines are going to give you the fastest aim down sight speed possible. Of course, this one is not going to have the fastest aim down sight speed because we're not using the F-Tac collapsible stock. We're using the Forge Tac ultralight stock, which is going to give us more aim down sight movement speed. So this is exactly why I'm running with the stippled grip tape to help give us more aim down sight speed. It's going to help us out in those categories to help balance out the weapon overall, because the weapon is mostly about controlling that recoil and getting a laser beam type of accuracy. But if you take a look at the differences here between the Warzone loadouts and the first 2 multiplayer class setups that I do recommend, there's only a 10 millisecond difference. So you're not really going to see much of a difference in aim down sight speed. However, you might feel it in the no recoil setup. So that's for you guys to decide. All right, so for the sprint to fire time, clearly the no recoil MP5 setup for multiplayer is going to give you the fastest sprint to fire time. Now, if you take a look at the setup itself, the reason why is because we're running with that stippled grip tape. The stippled grip tape is going to greatly increase that sprint to fire time, and that's why we needed to put that on to help balance the weapon out just a little bit, since again, like I said, this weapon is not really meant for aggressive gameplay. However, should you get into those type of situations where you need to pull up your weapon as fast as possible, you definitely want to have that. Same story applies for the Warzone loadout number 1. If you take a look at the attachments here, the reason why this one has the faster sprint to fire time is because of that 5 milliwatt laser that we are using. Now, you could use the 5 milliwatt laser on the MP5 10mm Warzone loadout. However, you do have to take into account how often you're going to be reloading your weapon in Warzone. If you're playing quads, trios, duos, or whatever, you're going to want to reload your ammo fast, and with 30 rounds only, and you got to get through all those plates and down the opponent and then get ready for the next person who's going to be coming at you. You need to be ready for that next gunfight. So, however, I do recommend sticking with sleight of hand for Warzone. Now, for the movement speed, clear winner here is going to be the MP5 with the 10mm rounds, no matter if it's Warzone or multiplayer. Now, you may notice that this one is significantly lower than the other class setups that we have here for the no recoil setup, and the main reason why is because we're not using collapsible stock. This is where you're going to see the no recoil shine the most. So just because it shows a negative doesn't mean it's bad. Negative is actually pretty good if you're talking about recoil. So this one is going to reduce your recoil by about 17%, while the rest of the setups will add about 4% to your recoil, which is actually still not that bad. And according to the screenshot that I showed you earlier in the video, it gives you the best recoil pattern as well as the best recoil control. You're going to get the best hipfire area with the Warzone loadout number 1. If you take a look at our setup here, we've got that 5 milliwatt laser, which is going to greatly decrease those cursors so small that your hipfire accuracy is basically going to go through the roof, and it's going to be really easy to just down your opponents in Warzone. So when you go into a building, you're trying to clear out a room, you don't even need to aim down sights. You just got to point your cursor literally at the enemy and fire without aiming down sights, and you'll still get a pretty accurate shot. Now, the reason why the 10mm rounds don't have as much bullet velocity as the 45-meter rounds, as you see here, they nerfed that damage and that range. So that's why you don't get as much bullet velocity at a certain range. That's when it becomes ineffective and not as viable as it was before. And that's what exactly we're going to take a look at now. So here's the comparison chart. This is for multiplayer, by the way. This is also what's really nice about this website, is that you can change the target's health accordingly depending on what stats you want to look at. So obviously we're going to look at multiplayer first, and you could also play around with these settings here. Include open bolt delay. Open bolt delay is the time between pulling the trigger and a bullet actually firing. So of course we want to turn that on. And I also turned on the percentage of ADS time all the way up to 100% so that we can get as accurate as possible. It says in general you will want the slider to be at 0 or 100%. There are certain situations situations where you can start firing before ADSing. In those situations, you would want to include a percentage of ADS on this slider. So I have mine at 100% here. And bullet travel time to target. This also we want. Bullet travel time to target is the time it takes for the bullet to reach the target. I just went ahead and removed the Warzone loadouts because for some reason it wasn't showing the stats. So we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But as you can see here, for the no recoil setup, it has a significantly higher time to kill. Now, the reason why is because we're not running with the collapsible stock. Now, as you can see here, this accounts for the ADS time. Of course, the ADS time on the collapsible stock is going to be much faster than the Forge Tac Ultra Light. So this basically accounts for real life situations, how fast you can pull up your gun. As you can see here, the time to kill is nearly identical. However, the only difference is about 2 meters. It really just depends on your preference. Do you want more ammo, or do you really want to be able to down your opponents a lot faster? You can see here from about that 21 meter range all the way about to 27 meters, the MP5 with 10mm rounds is going to give you the better range as well as time to kill. If you take into account how many rounds of ammo you have per mag, which is 30 rounds, that's just not really practical. Like I said earlier, you got to be confident in your shot. You got to be really accurate in order to get the most out of this attachment. But if you're looking for something that's more practical in different kinds of situations, then by all means, you got to go with the 45 round mags. It's not that much of a difference. As you can see, they line up right here and you do get more ammo, which means you get more opportunities to shoot your target a lot more accurately. You really have to pick your poison with this one. And I would say you have to be very selective with what kind of maps that you are going to use the 10mm rounds on. All right, so taking a look at our Warzone loadouts, the lines almost line up with each other. However, the 30 round mags does give you a slight increase to your damage range, and it's only literally 2 meters. So like I said before, it's really up to you. As long as you use the MP5 up close and personal to clear out buildings, you're not going to see much of a difference in time to kill as far as the MP5 with 45 round mags goes versus the 30 round mags. The only real edge that the 30 round mags has is that it has a faster movement speed. So that's something that you have to account for as well. But it does have less ammo, so you are going to need to run sleight of hand. That about wraps it up for today's video. Leave a like on this video if you did find this video helpful, and subscribe so you can make your way back to the channel and turn on notifications as well. And let me know down below in the comments which MP5 class setup are you going to be going with for both multiplayer and in Warzone. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.